There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talking Stick Show. So I am joined by Anna Louise Haigh. Hello.
Hello.
And how are you doing today?
I am loving the weather at the moment, despite the wind, but I love the fresh, clear day. So I'm just absolutely energized by all of that.
Beautiful. It is nice going out in the fresh weather, and when you're walking around on a nice walk, it gives a lot more, I don't know, for me, a lot more life, that freshness of when you're going out and you're even seeing the breath as well. There's that nice connection.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is the third time you're on the show. The last few conversations have been extraordinarily outstanding. Just the layers we go into on the last show, if you want to look back at the last shows as well, we've had two shows before together. So how has things been for you then since we last spoke? Because I think the last time we spoke was it after it was going into the second lockdown or third lockdown? I've lost how many lockdowns have gone on now, but it was in between that. And I remember you talking specifically about people in the first lockdown and how it's changed in the second one. And you were talking about, as I remember, specifically about the garden and how to look after your own garden, watering it, nurturing it and stuff like that. So how are you at the moment? And let's talk a little bit about what's going on, because for me, it's coming into Christmas and we've got a bit of confusion, I'd say, going on at the moment, because we're kind of unsure what's happening. We don't know if it's going to go one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you're quite right. I think we spoke after the third lockdown, because as I see the lockdowns, the first one was everybody was a little bit of a, well, this is new, it's a bit of a holiday, get yourself, sit out in the garden, enjoy. And people saw it as quite an external thing, where it's like a big long holiday and it went on for 3 or 4 months or whatever. And that was kind of a real breath of fresh air, I think, for a lot of people. Second lockdown, I think people came more into their world of, right, so we're doing this again. I'm going to do something about fixing my world, decluttering, decorating, and all the rest of it. And jobs were starting to look a bit tentative. And then the third lockdown, I think that's where people really started to think, well, I've done all the outside stuff. I've done the decorating and all that stuff. Now I'm looking inwardly. And I feel that since that time, and as we're coming into, like you say, the uncertainty of Christmas, and also, are we going to have another lockdown in January, February? What's the new year going to bring? I think I'm hoping that people have taken this period of time over the summertime since the third lockdown ended to remember what they gained through reflection during the first 3 lockdowns, but also what they can take forward. So instead of slipping back into old patterns that probably they weren't happy with in the first place, pre-pandemic, staying in a level of consciousness that says you can make choices, you can pivot, if your job is feeling threatened, then you can make some choices, and maybe it's a fresh start. And I know the summertime that we had, it all felt a bit more free and easier, and it would be easy to kind of think back, oh, a couple of years ago, this is just how life was. Let's hang on to that. But I know that there's a lot of people who are concerned about their jobs. I know there's a lot of people who are questioning whether they want to return to the same jobs because the values of the company they work for or the organization don't match with their values now, because they've had a chance to explore their values and beliefs, discuss it with close family and friends while they've been in lockdown. So I'm seeing that a lot of people are pivoting, but quite a lot of people are also floundering. They know they want to make changes, but because they felt perhaps so disempowered for so long and trapped in their own hamster wheel of their own making, or maybe out of necessity, and there's no blame, no guilt, no shame on that, then maybe now is the time to particularly since we're coming into, in autumn, coming into winter, now's the time to really sit back with yourself and see how far you've come in the last couple of years, because it won't be as far as you intended, but it'll be perhaps a deeper journey that was unexpected, but really meaningful. And we can easily gloss over that and jump into Christmas without taking the benefit, because we're so good at being pre-seasoned. What I mean by that is we hop from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. No sooner will we get Christmas done, but the Easter things will be in the shops. And there's no moment that we can actually sit back and say, okay, what do I really want? And that's where I see the opportunity is right now. So I'm sorry, that's a big long-winded answer,
Oh,
but just to frame up where I'm seeing that people are.
It's great because what you're saying is, and it's such a simple thing, but it's right in front of us, is a choice. And that's what it all comes down to, choice. And we were talking before about taking on the soul connection and what it means and what happens when it's broken. This is what we're going to be talking about on this show. And it's interesting that that conversation is kind of going into that it all comes down to the choice. And a lot of people have all these views, dreams, inspirations, but the hard thing for them is the choice and the choice point. And what I mean by choice point is, when you've made the choice, it's all right having the choice, but choice point means a choice and actually doing and going ahead with what you want to do. So how important is choice and actually going forward? And why do we sometimes as humans have all these dreams, but we still choose then to go back and live the past and live that life we feel in retribution and we feel really low?
Yeah, well, to answer that part of your question, why do we hold on to the past, even though it may be uncomfortable, even though it may not be giving us a sense of fulfillment and meaningfulness and purpose and value in life? Why do we do that? Because it's safe. It's safe. Nobody sets out to have a mundane life. You know, when you were a baby and your parents looked lovingly into your eyes, they didn't look into your eyes and say, oh, lovely, you're going to have a mundane life, because that nobody wants that for anybody else. And when you were a baby, you were full of hope and joy and freedom to express yourself. And then we start getting conformed into this little homogenous being. And the thing is, you're quite right, Dale, that you know, we've got hopes and dreams and intentions, and we've got the choices to be able to follow them. But the gap in the middle, I feel that where people drop into this void is because they don't trust themselves to make good decisions. They've made decisions in the past. They've made decisions in the past that maybe they've had to make to take a job, to put food on the table, that seemed logical. Maybe they trained in college for something and then went into the job that amplified that training, but somewhere in the back of their mind they're saying, well, this isn't me, but you know, what will mom and dad say, or whatever. And the thing is, we build this world of responsibilities around us and illusions of who we think we need to be, and because of that we stay stuck. And we get the chance to elevate from that, such as with lockdowns, such as with job changes or mandates or whatever. We get the chance to leave from that, but there's this like sticky, invisible stuff that springs you right back in. And the scissors that cut that sticky stuff that pulls you straight back in is basically your ability to listen to your inner voice, to trust it, and to act upon it. And the way to do that is through rock solid self-esteem. And that gives you your self and your soul connection. That's how I see it working.
So going back to what you were saying, the first part was trust, and I do feel that is a big connection to what we're talking about, the soul connection and connecting to the spirit instead of the programs. Let's talk a little bit about trust then and break it down. What does trust mean? What is trust? Is faith the same as trust? All of those things. What are your takes on it?
So to me, trust is about gaining, it's about confidence, it's about knowing yourself, it's about having a full awareness, self-awareness of your values and beliefs, having tried them out against the real world and knowing what works right for you. And you only know what works right for you by how you feel. And to be self-aware and connect with the feelings that validate whether you're about to make a good decision or a doubtful one, that will help build your trust. So self-awareness is crucial to help to start to build inner trust. And then, of course, we look at how do we portray that trust out in the world? How do we surround ourselves with people we can trust and organizations we can trust and so on? And that's about looking at their values and beliefs and looking at their track record, how they exemplify themselves. Is trust the same as faith? I don't think it is. I think that faith is a deeper inner knowing that will support your trust in yourself. And in terms of faith, you know, it's a bit like hope in that kind of way. Hope, funnily enough, I know that our conversations come around to this, and we didn't actually pre-plan this. I know this is very kind of as we go. Tomorrow, I am delivering a mega workshop called 2022, the Year of Hope. And that is, you know, it's one of the questions we're going to look at is, how is hope different to faith, different to belief, different to values, different to dreams, and so on. The thing is that faith will give you, if you like, I like to think of it as a boat. Faith is the boat that you are in. Hope is where you are heading. And it's you that's got the hand on the wheel or the tiller. You are the one who guides that boat to the place of hope. And then you trust the sea, the journey to take you there. So I use that kind of metaphor to understand that when we are trying to navigate our life in a meaningful, safe, enriching way, we need to remember that we need an underpinning of trust. We need to have faith. We need to have hope. We need to act. And all of that builds our trust. Baby steps build trust. That's how I see it.
It reminds me of that. One of the truly things when I started on my path was the first 4 or 5 years of my spiritual path, I didn't fully trust myself. And it was appearing to me in loads of different lessons in my life, unbalanced chaos and stuff I haven't dealt with. And there was a realization of how well do I actually trust myself to not lose control, keep on the journey. And that's one of the hardest things is people losing control of everything. And there's so many layers into this trust issue. And going back to when we said we were going to talk about that soul connection and what breaks a soul connection, and maybe going and talking about trust, but why do we not trust, and how has that come from? Has that come from our childhood, or where's this come from, this not trusting the self, always having validation through the government, or always letting the partner tell you what needs to happen in your life? There's been some sort of disconnection for a lot of people, and let's talk about how this broken trust happens.
Yeah, definitely. Well, broken trust, I mean, my goodness, I remember something Dr. Wayne Dyer once said, and that was that for 9 months unseen, 2 cells become 1 trillion cells, which makes a baby. It did that without us telling it what to do. It did it all on its own, the most magical thing that could ever happen in your human life. That baby gets born, and immediately the adults around it, who've probably never resolved any of their own issues, start telling that baby how to be. And it's like, where's the trust go? Well, I think it from, you know, with best intentions, always trying to be there. I do feel that we're never really taught in most societies to trust ourselves. We're not taught to go inside and find our answers. Yes, we need to be taught to be safe. We need to be taught the basics, the academics and all that stuff. But to me, a whole person is one that is well-rounded academically, mentally, psychologically, physically, spiritually. And when we are not allowed to try and fail and learn, when our common sense is shut down from the sake of being spoon-fed what to do through, whether it's through the media, through television, through headlines, through society, through cultures, whatever it might be, when we're constantly bombarded with icons and ideals that we're enticed to live up to, we lose track of what is meaningful for ourselves. And therefore, when we are faced alone with a situation that needs to be dealt with that is affecting us or our loved ones immediately, if we haven't connected with that soul self impulse that gives that sense of confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, and so on, then all the illusions around us are not going to come and run in and help us make decisions, because they are not part of our reality. They are just the influences that create our reality. And so when we're faced with a challenge, many people don't have any resources to draw upon because they've been so busy infused being an observer of life and being imprinted by the external messages that they just look and go, well, who's going to help me? How do I fix this? I have no resources. And that's because they've detached themselves from the resources within themselves. So the soul self connection is about keeping that sense of inner knowing going, but at the same time being grounded, yet connected and engaged in the world, in your true self, in your authenticity.
Outstanding. And that reminds me of a lot of situations which go on now, which I've been through, as food and trust of what goes in your body. Oh, yeah. For me, I feel this might be another to continue on the trust, how ideology kind of separates everything. And like you were talking about, people go off the ideology instead of listening to themselves. Yep. And for me, there was a lot of listening to ideology about food and what other people recommend would be healthy. But then I started listening to people who were talking about how important it is, going back to trust, is trusting your body, listening to your body, like you say about the birthing process, allowing it to go in within and actually see how your body feels. Ask your body, what food do I need? What nourishment do I need? Yeah. There is so much ideology or belief systems out there. It's so easy to just kind of like bite into other people's stuff instead of actually weaning into the self.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so true. And like you say about the different ideologies, I feel that we are on the cusp of a consciousness crisis. And the reason why I say that is because with a lot of what is coming out or not coming out in social awareness, different court cases that are going on right now, different political things that are going on around the world. A lot of our icons and models of society are being broken down right now. They're being revealed and they are being challenged. And where we may well have idolized this, that, or the other thing, or this, that, and the other person, and externalized into that connection and lost sight of our own value and gold within us. When we start, or when the illusion starts to drop, then people are going to be in that state, well, who am I? Even more so, who am I? And, this is why I see the pandemic and these couple of years and however much longer it's going to go on, it is a great awakening, and it's going to keep, on a spiritual level, it's going to keep happening until people click on and just say, right, what's the tipping point? Now I get it. Now I finally have to make a choice that, I've been pushed up against the wall. I have to make these choices. How do I make them? I can't trust that out there. I've got to go inside. I've got to trust. And that's when things will start to change, really change. And that's when we'll start to really come out of this phase that we're in now. And I hope we do. I don't want people to suffer, but I want to get out this phase in an enlightened way.
Outstanding. And that's what it's interesting. I don't really share my opinions on the specifically the virus on like a online purpose or any conspiracies or like that. I'm not don't really into doing that, but from my feeling of it and doing a lot of searching from it, I do believe that, like you say, the COVID can be the virus which keeps on giving. It depends how you look at it. It obviously, don't get me wrong, there are people who will die, there are people who will lose their jobs, and that the prayers go to those people. But in the scheme of things, like you're talking about, it's actually making people, it's like pushing people to the edge and saying, right, you've lost your freedom, and you're going to realize how controlled, because for me, we've been on a lockdown all of our life, and it's like the realization of how locked down we are inside, not just externally, but like you say, inside. That how many times are we going to go back into these lockdowns for you to actually go have that ha moment of, right, I've got to really release this lockdown, not allow the vaccine, not allow this to make me feel sad or angry, but just live happiness, just be who I am, and remember all the inner traumas I've got to really work on and be responsible for.
Yeah, exactly. And, there are gifts in all of what we're experiencing. Getting, the call to get more out in nature is incredibly a soul self connection opportunity. you know, particularly in the first lockdown when the world stopped and the skies were clearer and nature was healing very rapidly. She started to heal, and people were out experiencing nature like perhaps like they'd never done before. And that is a full mindful experience, and it's a gift of healing and guidance. And we can take so many metaphors from nature, which is one of the lingering things I'm really glad that I'm seeing people are taking up. And while yes, we all want to be the master of our moments and of our mindset, yeah, we, you know, maybe we have been in a lockdown all our lives, but now that we're on the cusp of finding out which way we're going to go with all of this, you know, valuing our freedom to think, be, and do and have as we wish is an inside job. And the thing is, you can take everything away from somebody, or from, I mean, I've lost everything in my time more than once. You know, to know who you are without your stuff is the place where you start to really, really build that soul self connection. And it's not that I want anybody to go to the extremes of losing all their stuff or their labels or their identities, but spend some time asking yourself, who am I beyond this? Who am I beyond this relationship, beyond this job title, beyond this house, beyond this car, whatever? And what you're left with is your health and your values and how you feel about yourself, your quality of self-love. And that is what creates that soul self connection. And when you've got the soul self connection amplified, you'll trust your intuition, your health will be more resilient, your relationships will be stronger, and you will manifest in your life what makes you feel fulfilled and purposeful, because you're on track, you're in your own zone.
Absolutely. So and that's great that so going out in nature is very vitally important. It's like all the four elements are inside of us, and for me, I have to have fire, water, air, earth balance within me. And for the whole collective humanity, it's about remembering that we're here to experience the land, we're here to experience nature, we're here to have a experience in this body, and as a soul, as a spirit. And it's important, like you say, going out to those nature points and those like sacred sites, or wherever you want to go, waterfall, and just experiencing it and allowing, again, the inner child. And this is another thing which comes through. A lot of people have problems with trust and problems with people because their inner child, they've got a lot of stuff they've not worked through. And let's talk a little bit, not too much about the inner child, but the importance of understanding that, because I do believe when we are in innocence, we're very powerful, and we can change the world in this beautiful innocence, forgiveness frequency. So let's talk a little bit about the inner child and how does that correspond to the self-trust and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the inner child, so many of us were brought up by people whose inner child was never honored or even healed. And therefore, we are mini distillations of what wasn't fixed before. And that's not a judgment, that's just how it rolls.
Yeah.
And to me, your inner child is always there holding that light that says, this is me. You know, I may have a few shadows around me, but my light is still there. And I think no matter what's happened within a lifetime, that we need to remember that on a soul level, perhaps these are experiences that carry deep meaning and deep learning for us, so that consciously we can take that meaning without being glib or dismissive. We can take that meaning and apply the strengths and learning of it into our adult self now. And so I'm not saying that the soul attracted all of these experiences just because that's how it wanted to be. What I'm saying is that to grow you into the self you were needed to be in this lifetime, your soul came in with certain opportunities to gain strength, learning, and express its wisdom gained in previous lifetimes. And let's not forget, whatever happens in this lifetime within you, your heart, your soul energy connection will actually amplify your soul's energy that goes on to its next host. So you're caretaker here, and you're looking after and you're improving. From the inner child perspective, I find that when we can get out and be like our inner child, let go of the adult, get out. It sits on you, doesn't
The
it?
bills to pay.
All of that. Yeah. When we get out and play, you dance, you sing, you go listen to great music, you go to a playground, you jump in the sea, often to honor your inner child, it's not necessarily about sitting down and playing with Lego or coloring. It's about getting outside and doing childlike things. And this is one of the things that reminds us of what it feels like to have that sense of innocence. But innocence doesn't mean naivety. Innocence is represented in freedom and joy and bliss and carefreeness and non-judgment and not preempting something with your adult head. It carries with it a lot of opportunity to be self-expressive, to be creative. And, if you applied your inner child potential to your well-being, then you'd be looking at being grounded because you're out in nature and you are immersed in the mud, the puddles, and the joy of things. You're being creative, so you're actually encouraging yourself to rebirth yourself into new energy. And that then expresses in your confidence, it expresses in your relationships, your joy, your choices. And ultimately, it helps you feel more like a whole being. And so what I have found in the past, when I've mentored people, is they get quite hung up on not being able to move forward until their inner child is completely happy. And that just may not happen. It may, what is the vision? How can you have a genuine vision of your inner child being happy if your childhood never was? But we can take strength from those inner child experiences and from that childhood experience and use that to amplify the wholeness, the light, the purposefulness, the joy within us, because all of that energy carries a value. And so often it's not about getting to that point of completely healing the inner child, but it's about honoring the inner child within you and being kind to that part of yourself. And on the down days, the tough days, do something gorgeous that you would love to have had done when you were a child, or that you would do for your favorite child in your life right now. So like I say, honoring can be part of the healing process, and just letting it be. Recognize it, release, move on.
And I've had before, so people who have come to the ceremonies and did some dancing and some drumming. It's interesting because I've had success of people coming with ladies with menstrual problems, or say they've not been able to go on their period, then they'd come to one of the events, and it's not me, it's them doing all the work, and it's just holding that space for them. And all of a sudden someone messaged me and said the next day, like, I finally had my period, and it's been brewing for ages. And it felt like that for me was a big teacher, because that was just showing how important it is to express yourself and let go and experience the feminine, the masculine, and it opens up to natural living. And that's like cancer. It's kind of going a bit off topic, but it kind of corresponds a little bit with it, because for me, being as natural as possible is so important, even with products or what you're going to eat, so on and so forth. Yeah. So that was something for me from my journey not long ago, which has happened to me before. You teach angelic Reiki. I've had it in Reikis as well. People who have had problems with the menstrual cycles, problems giving birth, they can't get pregnant, and they'd come to one of these events. The inner child will be there. They'll be allowing themselves to just have fun, and all of a sudden they're back into that natural living.
Exactly. And the thing is, when you look at it like that, how can, from a deep subconscious, soul self-conscious, subconscious perspective, if somebody is harboring or trying to deal with a really damaged or broken inner child, subconsciously they're going to be terrified of birthing a real child, because their inner child isn't, they haven't got a whole inner child, so how can they have a whole real child? And that blockage focuses around the sacral chakra and that creativity. And, you know, we talk about whether you're going to birth a real child or rebirth yourself. If your inner child isn't, if you don't feel you can caretake your inner child well enough, you're not going to let yourself birth or be rebirthed into something new, because you've got this whole mistrust, lack of self-trust, lack of doubt, or complete doubt about your ability. So metaphorically, the inner child becomes the child you might have, or the child you birth through yourself as your own new self.
And it's interesting you say about rebirthing, because it's something I've done previously before, and how important is rebirthing yourself. So say someone's listening now and they've got they know there needs to be some more trust with the self, there needs to be some more work done on themselves. What can be like the first steps of going forward on that rebirth and trusting themselves again, just to give people a bit of a helping hand?
Well, start simply. Baby steps is what I always say. And, you know, if somebody is thinking, how do I start along that self-trust avenue, just be aware that of all the decisions you've made in your life, you've ended up here watching this now. So all your decisions haven't been bad. They haven't been wrong. Yes, you will probably remember the choices that you made that landed heavily. And that's what we do, because those are our survival learning skills. But I would say the first thing to do is to sit back, grab your journal, and write down the choices that you can remember that were positive, that led to good outcomes, that helped you move along your way. They might be minor. It might be that you bought a favorite outfit and you went out and had a great time that night. Whatever, that's a good choice. Trust your good choices, but first of all, identify them, because your good choices easily slip by.
Yeah, they
do
really,
that
really
first
do.
step.
And so we've looked into trust as part of the disconnection and the soul connection. What other areas would you say which are stopping people from being connected to their self, their soul? What other areas can we go into?
I think, to be honest, and I know we're out on Facebook and all the rest of it, but digital stuff, technology.
And I was going to speak about that earlier.
It's ironic. Yeah, I mean, it's social media. You know, we are constantly drawn towards square things, oblong and square things, you know, phones, screens, whatever.
Yeah.
And the reality is that within our world, we are actually made in a helix of a spiral. And there's a lot of circular elements to our body, to our cells, and our innate self is basically circular. And yet outside of ourselves, which has the biggest influence on ourselves, is everything that's pretty much square or rectangular. I find that interesting. Maybe it's just the way my head works, but the two don't go together. You know? And so one of the biggest things you can do is give yourself a digital detox time each day, ideally, definitely each week. And if you can't do that, then start with once a month. Maybe do it on a new moon, maybe do it on a full moon. But you know, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do while you're still lying in bed is starting to scroll your Facebook, scroll your social media, scroll your emails, then you're hooked. You're sucked in right from the beginning.
Dopamine release.
You know, and your early waking time, your first half hour when you wake up, I know we all like to lie in and stuff, but your early wake up time is a time when your soul and your spirit and your self are refusing, reharmonizing together from your nighttime experiences. And so this is a really powerful assimilation time. And if the first thing you do is roll over, grab your phone and start infusing yourself with whatever's going on Facebook, then you're completely severing that opportunity to get that connection established for your day. So yes, you might use your phone for your alarm clock, but try and break the habit of just grabbing it and lying there for half an hour. Take that time to practice some deep breathing, to think about the first 3 things you're going to do in the day, set up the energy for your day, get up, do them, get to your phone after a while. That to me is a big starting point. Yeah, social media. I rely on it for my business, for my online teaching and such. And we have to learn to live with it, but not let it dominate.
And I feel that's one of the biggest things. If you go into any room, or if you go into people waiting, or say concerts now, all you see is people with the phones, because like you say, that there's that the disconnection from the actual soul. It's just they're ingrained into the dopamine release of looking at the phone. I'll hold my hands up. I do go on my phone a bit too much at the moment. I've gone in stages where I've had to put it away, turn off Facebook, and I have my moments where I go on it a little bit too much. So that's something I'm working on currently at the moment, is making sure I have the discipline to say, turn my Facebook off. Like one day a week, I'll be off social media. I'll turn off all my platforms and I won't interact with it at all, because I need that day to really switch off from everything. Then it's such a big thing. And even people now watching on the phones,
I know
it's such a thing. But like you say, it's important then to make those steps to not make it overload you, so you're relying on it, you're addicted to it, and you've lost your personality, because you can't have conversations anymore. And you do get people who can't have conversations with people because they're so used to having something, and maybe it's anxiety or anything like that.
Exactly. And the thing is that, you know, at the end of the day, it's our choice as to how much we spend on Facebook. And I hear people say, you know, oh, I don't like Facebook because there's so much horrible stuff on there, so much rubbish on there. Well, frankly, I never even see any of that kind of stuff. It's all about the connections you make. And if you don't like what you're seeing, look for other connections. You know, there's wholesome groups like yours, like mine, that want to inspire people. And the thing is that we are always in control, and there's always an off button, whether it's your TV, your phone, your laptop, whatever it might be. And the irony is, I mean, I've got my laptop plugged in now, I've got my phone plugged in. The thing is, we rely on energy to keep these things going, and yet we subjugate ourselves from our own energy to keep ourselves going, because we're spending so much time co-opted into these things. And there needs to be a balance. There needs to be that remembering who unplugs first. I choose to unplug first before my computer throws me off, basically, before, you know, we're always in control. It's about making that choice and being conscious. Make that conscious choice to reclaim your inner energy and detach from stuff that need to have secondhand energy.
And that's it. Like the choice connects to the trust, and we've gone in this full circle of how important to the start when we talked about choice. It all comes down to choice, the choice to do work on yourself or the choice not to. And one of the hardest things I feel for a lot of people, which I notice for clients, they'll have that inspiration for 2 months or 1 month. Then all of a sudden they'll be complete and they'll cancel the sessions. They'll not want to do anything. Then maybe they'll come back in 2 years. So what are those pointers for people, for them to, I think the endurance is the hardest thing on this path. And for me, it's been the hardest thing for me, but now I feel like I have so much variety on my journey, and make sure I have one day off a week where I completely switch off from spirituality altogether. And I feel that I've found my own way to navigate, chisel my way into the journey where I enjoy it. It's fresh, everything's new. What would you recommend for people who go through the awakening, but they can't stay awake for that long, and it's 3 or 4 months? What would you recommend for people for the endurance game of this journey?
Well, I believe that the awakening journey is one of remembering. It's not one of adopting new skills. Excuse me. It may be one of adopting new ways of being, because you're remembering what it feels like to be in the blissful space of energy, of that newborn freedom, joy, and self-expression. Getting back to your soul self, which is a soul self source connection. So it's the triangle. And the thing is, for the endurance part of it, is to remember that when you feel things are getting tough, that's often just about the point where you're about to make a breakthrough. So things reach a peak, people get scared off. Oh no, I don't want to do this. It's all getting too hard. Oh, my mother's ill, or this or that, or the other thing. Boom. And I've had it the same with people I've mentored as well over the years. And the thing is that if you can just hold on and grab a bit of hope, push through, and what will happen is, yeah, you may still have the outside demands on you, but how you approach them and how they affect you will be so much different, will be so different. And what will happen is, well, who you are when you show up for those people or that part of your life that's calling you, is you will be a much more valuable and aligned and attuned person that brings more truth to the situation. So have courage. I think a lot of us have lost courage. You know, we watch programs like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and these kind of things. You know, we watch these reality programs, and I think what we're doing is we're stopping taking ownership for our own momentum by watching other people have momentum in their lives, and we're kind of saying, well, they're doing it, that's okay, that's enough for me. And again, we have the remote control, we can turn it off. And be honest with yourself. If you're on the awakening journey, you're finding something tough, speak to your mentor, speak to your closest friend, get non-judgmental, what's the word? Get someone who truly listens to you, not somebody who's always going to talk at you. Let yourself be heard, let yourself be seen, and in a way that you're not going to feel silly or foolish or judged, but just let yourself be present for yourself, and things will soften down, because often what we think are really, really big problems are just a similar problem coming at us in a different way. You know?
And I feel like the last thing we should talk about on the show today would be, which is vitally important on my behalf as well, is stress and de-stressing. And let's talk about that. How important is de-stressing during the day, during your time, just so you can have the soul connection and really feel present, because sometimes there are so many stresses out there. You have to learn to lower the blood pressure. You have to go through that point of actually doing the work to de-stress for you and able to feel clarity, feel better.
Yeah. Okay. So here's how I do my day, right? I'm not saying I never get stressed. I do. However, I always can kick back to where my equilibrium really quickly. And here's how I do my day. So my first half hour of the day, I do what I call my morning stillness. And that is usually lying in bed, because I like being in my bed. And I will have my hand on my heart, my solar plexus, and it's just really deep diaphragmatic breathing. And for that half hour, I may meditate, I may put on some music, don't put on my phone. And I will then get to the point where I'm thinking about how my day is going to unfold. And I think of the first 3 things I need to do today, apart from the usual routine-y things. I know that whatever I do in the first hour of my day is going to set me up for how I feel throughout my whole day. And so I make sure that is calm, centered, sometimes just even taking a few breaths in nature, taking a little walk. And then as the day progresses, I make note of how I'm feeling and how I want to feel at the end of the day. And I work towards that feeling. Okay, so if I've got a big work project on it, by the end of the day, I want to feel X about this work project. What's going to help me get there? I'm going to plot that course. And then if something does drop on my lap that would kind of, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that, or I forgot to do this, or somebody needs help there, then I know I can part the time, slot it in, because I know I'm going to get back to where I want to feel. And that where I want to be by the end of the day is movable. What I achieve is movable. How I want to feel will be around that section. And so dealing with stress, to me, I always remember something a wise person told me. Anyone will always be as stressed as they choose to be. In other words, it's up to us to set good boundaries so we don't continually find ourselves time poor or money poor or space poor. It's up to us to say that we have priorities which need meeting before we can meet somebody else's needs. It's up to us to be responsible for how we allocate our time and how much we put on our plates, and to know that if we habitually overburden ourselves to the point of overwhelm and paralysis, then we need to look at what we're hiding behind in terms of being the busy fool. And really, what are we trying to avoid? Is it the fact that we don't feel like we're good enough inside, so we have to keep putting more out? Or is it a case of we just need to really get a grip and remember how magical we are on the inside, that there's more to us than flesh and bone. There's energy, there's soul, there's spirit, there's source connection. We are an expression of the divine. And when we remember that, there's no stress. There's just flow.
And getting into that flow, and that's there's a gentleman which I was listening to who talks about, it's a really good way of seeing it. He talks about spirituality, Andrew Bartis he's called, and he was saying that your level of awareness always must be matched equal to your responsibility. And it took me a few weeks or days to actually go over that, and I had like a ha moment where I realized how powerful that was, because for you, what you were just talking about, that was exactly it, that your level of awareness, what you're aware for during the day, you have to be responsible and meet it in balance. So the work you have to do on top to meet each other. And when I get stressed, and when I have my moments with kids, I do get stressed a lot with having so many kids. That's just part of life. I always have to be responsible for it. And if I have the moments of, right, take myself upstairs, I do the breath techniques, 30 rounds of in and out breath, holding my breath and stuff like that. And it grounds me, levels me. And yeah, it's so important, that, Anna Louise, and you get being responsible for it. And you, like you say, journaling, stuff like that. And for me, if you're on the spiritual path, you have to journal, because without journaling, it's one of the most important parts, because you'll never know how far you've got. You can't remember 4 months ago what happened, and you can look back at foresight and hindsight and go, right, these are the changes I need to make to become a better person.
Yeah, exactly. And it is also about gratitude. So I end my day in the reverse way I start it, and that is half an hour, deep breathing, snuggle up in bed, and just looking back over my day, maybe over the week, over the months sometimes, and highlighting what I'm grateful for. And even the little things, roof over my head, cuddly cats to snuggle up with, you know, whatever it might be. And also great connections like us here, you know. And so you'll be in my mind this evening when I'm doing my gratitudes.
Well, yeah, it really is. So this is the 3rd show you've been on, and I really enjoyed the shows because we can go and dissect each section really nicely, and we go into it, and it really does up my level of talking about it and really diving into what I know. So thank you for assisting me on that.
A pleasure. It's what I'm here for.
And so what have you got coming up then in the future for those who would like to meet you or join one of your courses, have a session?
Well, I do most of my work online these days. So I don't run a clinic anymore. So I run monthly workshops, usually around the date of the new moon. So they're on a Saturday or a Sunday. So there's a whole year's worth of those already caught up on replay for people to dive into. And of course, I'm planning for next year. So that's happening there. I do my full moon meditation sometimes on the night of the full moon, or as the weather, I've noticed that it's better the night before the full moon. I do that on my Awaken Your Wow with Anna Louise Haigh page on Facebook. That's always highlighted. I have I've got a wonderful workshop coming up tomorrow, which I mentioned is all about 2022, the year of hope. And I run my wonderful Soul Whisperer Sisterhood free Facebook group. And oh my goodness, it is just full of gorgeous women, and I love being part of that. And from there, I run a membership for women who want to go deeper into their spiritual journey without lots of time or money commitment. But it is just a lovely subscription that gives you lots of bonuses and benefits. And it all just leads into the bigger work I do. I'm creating a full program on building your self-esteem called Rock Solid Self-Esteem, and that's going to be out probably February, March time. And I'm really looking forward to that, because that's building on a lot of work I've done over the past 10 years. So there's lots coming up. There's lots of fun, and I only ever do stuff I feel is lighting me up inside, because I haven't got time in this life to do stuff just because. I only do stuff I love. That's a promise I made to myself many, many, many decades ago. And that's why I'm so looking forward to 2022 and all that it's got to bring and beyond. So again, I'm going to have to thank you very much for having me on here. I really enjoyed it. Thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. And yeah, it's been fun. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. And what a great show. I really, really had fun today. So thank you so much, Anna Louise, and thank you everyone for watching.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Aho.